Hey, it's Echo. Welcome back to Echo Craft. Tonight's story comes from r/confessions, one of those places where people write down the things they can't tell anyone else. Sometimes it's a mistake, sometimes it's regret, sometimes it's the truth they've been hiding from even themselves. This one's about a woman who made a choice she can't take back, and the guilt that came after. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin. Story 1. I told my husband I was on a work trip, but I wasn't. We'd been married for 7 years, together for almost 10. By every outside measure, we looked like the kind of couple that had it all figured out. People would say things like, "You two are perfect together," and I'd smile and say thank you, even though I'd started to feel the opposite. Somewhere between the routines and the small arguments, we'd stopped really seeing each other. He'd come home late from work, tired, distant, and I'd stopped trying to reach him. Our conversations became checklists: bills, groceries, family events. Nothing real, nothing deep. Then, last spring, I met Evan. He worked for another department, someone I'd email with occasionally but never really noticed until we ended up sitting next to each other during a company event. He was funny in that quiet, dry way that sneaks up on you. We talked about everything but work, movies, music, small frustrations about life. When the night ended, he said, "You make long days feel shorter." I laughed, but I felt something shift. It wasn't supposed to mean anything, it did. Over the next few weeks, we started talking more. Little things at first, inside jokes, shared playlists, late-night texts about how neither of us could sleep. Then the flirting started, subtle enough to pretend it wasn't happening. He'd compliment me in ways my husband hadn't in years. I told myself it was harmless. It wasn't. The first time we met outside of work, it was for coffee. Just coffee. But it didn't feel like coffee. It felt like stepping onto a ledge and pretending not to see how far down it went. When he touched my hand, I didn't pull away. That was the real beginning. A month later, there was a conference. 2 days out of town. My husband asked if I'd be okay travelling alone. I said yes, kissed him goodbye, and told him I loved him. I didn't know if I meant it anymore. I didn't go to the conference. Evan and I met halfway, at a small hotel near the coast. I remember how quiet it was, the kind of quiet that makes your heartbeat sound too loud. We told ourselves we were just going to talk, but we both knew that was a lie. I told him this couldn't happen. He said, "Then tell me to leave." I didn't. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't cinematic, it was human and messy and full of everything I'd been missing. Attention, touch, desire. But even in the middle of it, I could feel the guilt already forming, like smoke filling a room before you smell the fire. When I came home, my husband hugged me at the door. He said he missed me. I said I missed him too. I wanted to mean it. But something between us had cracked, and I knew it would never feel the same again. I didn't see Evan after that weekend. We stopped talking. Maybe he felt the same guilt I did. Maybe he moved on. But every time my husband looks at me with love in his eyes, I feel it. That weight of what he doesn't know. The secret sitting between us like another person. It's been almost a year now. I tell myself I made a mistake and learned from it. That it was a moment of weakness. But the truth is, part of me still wonders what would have happened if I'd chosen differently. If I'd been honest. If I'd ended things before crossing that line. Sometimes at night, when he's asleep beside me, I look at him and think about how easy it is to destroy something that took years to build. All it takes is one decision, one lie, one moment you can never take back. And that's my confession. Story 2. I ended up broke, alone and depressed at 35 years old. Here's why. I'm 35 years old, and I don't recognize the person I've become. There are mornings when I wake up and stare at the ceiling for an hour before I move, trying to convince myself that the day will be different, that I'll finally do something meaningful. But it never feels that way. My apartment is small, cluttered, half lit by the weak sun that filters through the blinds I keep forgetting to clean. There's a pile of unopened mail on the counter, bills probably, and a note from my landlord reminding me that rent was due last week. I used to be someone who had a plan. Now I just have excuses. If you'd met me 10 years ago, you'd have thought I was doing well. I had a decent job, a girlfriend I loved, a circle of friends who felt like family. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. I thought that meant I was safe, like I'd finally reached some invisible checkpoint in life where nothing could go too wrong. I was wrong. Started with small decisions, the kind that don't feel like mistakes until they stack up. I got a job right out of college at a marketing firm. It paid well enough, but I hated it. Every day felt like pretending, smiling through meetings, pitching ideas I didn't believe in, chasing numbers that meant nothing. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd quit once I saved up enough to do something I actually cared about. But temporary has a way of turning into years when you stop paying attention. My girlfriend back then, Laura, was patient at first. She'd ask how work was, and I'd shrug and say, fine. She wanted to travel, to move to a bigger city, to start something new. I kept saying someday. I was too scared. Scared to fail, scared to lose stability, scared to admit I didn't know what I wanted. Eventually she stopped asking. We started spending our evenings in separate rooms, scrolling through our phones instead of talking. The love didn't disappear all at once. It faded like a song you forget the words to. Then one night she told me she was leaving. She said, I can't keep waiting for you to start living. I didn't fight her. I told her I understood. That was the first lie. The truth was, I didn't understand anything, least of all myself. After she left, I threw myself into work. Not because I cared, but because it filled the silence. My friends tried to get me out to cheer me up, but I always had an excuse. I told them I was tired, busy, not in the mood. Eventually they stopped calling. I told myself they'd moved on, but really I was the one who drifted away. The loneliness crept in quietly. You don't notice it at first. The empty weekends, the unanswered texts. You just tell yourself you're fine, that you prefer the quiet. But quiet turns into isolation before you realise it. I started drinking more, not heavily, just enough to take the edge off. A beer after work became 2, then 3. I told myself I deserved it. I told myself I could stop whenever I wanted. Around that time I made what I thought was a smart move. I quit my job. I had some savings, a decent network, and this half-formed idea that I'd start freelancing, maybe build my own business. For the first few months it felt liberating. I worked from coffee shops, set my own hours, felt in control, but then the clients stopped coming. Projects fell through, deadlines were delayed. I'd overestimated how ready I was, how stable I'd be without a safety net. I burned through my savings faster than I'd admit to anyone. Rent, groceries, small indulgences to make myself feel like I was still doing okay. I told people business was good, even as my bank account slid closer to zero. I started ignoring calls from my credit card company. The more my life unraveled, the harder I pretended it wasn't happening. My parents offered to help. I told them I was fine. Pride, ego, whatever you call it. It's expensive. I couldn't stand the thought of them worrying. I didn't want them to see me as a failure, so I lied. I lied about everything. About work, about my health, about how busy I was. The truth was, most days I didn't leave my apartment. I'd wake up, open my laptop and stare at the screen, pretending to be productive while doing absolutely nothing. Then came the panic attacks. They started small. A racing heart, shortness of breath, this vague sense that something was wrong. The first time it happened, I thought I was dying. I called an ambulance. They said it was anxiety. I laughed when they told me. I didn't feel anxious. I felt nothing. But that's the thing about depression. It doesn't always feel like sadness. Sometimes it feels like emptiness. I wish I could say there was a single moment that changed everything, a rock bottom that made me finally wake up. But life doesn't work like that. Rock bottom is quiet. It's realizing you haven't spoken to another person in days. It's ignoring calls because you don't know how to explain what's wrong. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking, when did I give up? I picked up odd jobs for a while. Deliveries, remote gigs, whatever I could find. It helped for a bit, but it never felt like progress, just survival. And the longer it went on, the smaller my world became. Friends got married. They had kids, promotions, new homes. I stopped scrolling social media because every post felt like a reminder of how far behind I'd fallen. Some nights I'd pour a drink and tell myself I was okay, that I'd figure it out eventually, that tomorrow would be the day I'd turn things around. But tomorrow always looked a lot like yesterday. The worst part wasn't being broke, it was losing my sense of purpose. Money problems, loneliness, failure, they're all manageable when you still believe you can fix them. But when you stop believing, that's when everything starts to rot. I'd go weeks without answering messages from my family. My mum left voicemails that got shorter and sadder each time. "Just call me back," she'd say. I never did. I told myself it was shame, but really, it was fear. Fear that if I told her the truth, she'd look at me differently, that she'd hear my voice and know her son wasn't okay. One night, I got drunk alone and decided to check Laura's social media. I hadn't looked in years. She was married now, 2 kids, a house. She looked happy, genuinely happy. And instead of feeling bitter, I just felt small, like I'd been standing still while everyone else kept moving. That night, I wrote something down, not a suicide note, but close, just a confession to myself. I wrote, "I don't know how to live without pretending." I stared at it for a long time, then I fell asleep on the couch with the TV still on. The next morning, something strange happened. I woke up, read what I'd written, and instead of feeling hopeless, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Because finally it was the truth. I didn't have to pretend anymore. I started small. I called my mum. She cried when she heard my voice. I told her everything. The job, the money, the loneliness. She didn't judge me. She just said, "We'll figure it out." Those 3 words broke me in the best way. For the first time in years, I let someone in. I got a part-time job at a bookstore. It didn't pay much, but it got me out of the house. I talked to people again. I started going to therapy. It wasn't some dramatic turnaround, more like crawling slowly out of a hole I dug myself. But it was progress. I learned that being broke isn't just about money. It's about being spiritually bankrupt, about giving away pieces of yourself to things that don't matter until you've got nothing left. I'd spent years chasing the illusion of success, of control, of not failing. But in the process, I'd stopped actually living. Now, at 35, I don't have much. My apartment is still small. My bank account isn't impressive. I don't have a partner or a dream job or a 5-year plan. But I have something I didn't before. Honesty. I stopped lying to people. I stopped lying to myself. I started telling the truth when people asked how I was. Sometimes that truth is not great, but it's real. I've started writing again. Nothing fancy, just small reflections like this one. Things I wish someone had told me years ago. Things like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to lose people. It's okay to stop pretending you're fine when you're not. Because the moment you stop pretending, that's when you actually start healing. I still have bad days. Some mornings, the old weight comes back. That heavy feeling in my chest. That voice that says I've wasted too much time. But I remind myself that I'm still here. That I made it through the worst parts. That there's still a version of my life I haven't lived yet. I used to think life was about milestones. The job, the house, the marriage. Now I think it's about survival. About showing up for yourself even when it feels pointless. About finding beauty in the smallest victories. Making your bed. Paying one bill on time. Cooking instead of ordering takeout. When people ask me what happened, I don't give them a neat answer. I just say, I stopped paying attention. Because that's the truth. You don't lose your life all at once. You lose it in moments, one small compromise at a time, and then one day you wake up 35, broke, alone and depressed, wondering where it all went. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that starting over doesn't require money or luck or a miracle. It just requires honesty. The courage to admit that you've been lost, and the quiet faith that maybe, just maybe, you can find your way back. That's what I'm trying to do now. Find my way back. So yeah, I ended up broke, alone, and depressed at 35. But for the first time in a long time, I'm also free. Free from pretending, free from the noise, free from the version of myself that only lived for other people's expectations. And maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's the beginning of something new. Story 3. I lied about having cancer, and I don't know how to live with it anymore. I don't know what made me do it. Even now, after years of trying to untangle the reasons, I still can't pinpoint the moment where a simple lie became my entire identity. I think it started as a desperate need to feel cared for, to be noticed, to be seen. I never set out to hurt anyone, but I did. And I can't take any of it back. It began 3 years ago. I'd just turned 29, working a job I hated, living in a city that felt like it didn't even know I existed. My friends were getting married, having kids, buying houses, and I was still stuck in the same small apartment, same dead-end office job, same cycle of meaningless days. I wasn't unhappy exactly, just invisible. The kind of loneliness that isn't loud but slow, like water dripping on stone. I remember the exact day I told the lie. It was raining, and I was sitting in my car after work, scrolling through my phone, staring at pictures of people living lives I'd never have. I'd been feeling sick that week, dizzy, nauseous, just run down. I'd gone to the doctor earlier that day for a checkup, and they told me it was probably just stress, nothing serious. But when I got a text from my coworker asking if I was okay, the words came out before I even thought about them. I said, they think it might be something serious, maybe cancer. The second I hit send, I felt my stomach drop. I told myself I'd fix it later, that I'd explain it was a misunderstanding. But instead, she wrote back, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Do you need anything?" And in that moment, the single, stupid, impulsive moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Care. That one lie spread faster than I could control. Within days, everyone at work knew. People brought me coffee, sent flowers, hugged me in the hallway. My boss told me to take time off. I should have stopped it right there, but I didn't. I leaned into it. I told them it was stage 2. I told them I was starting treatment soon. I don't know why I chose that number, or why I made it sound so specific, but it made people take me seriously. It made me real in their eyes. For the first time in my life, people saw me. They asked how I was feeling. They checked in. Friends who'd stopped talking to me years ago reached out again. My parents called every night. My social media filled with supportive messages and comments. It was intoxicating. I told myself it was harmless, that I'd find a way to end it quietly later, that I just needed it for now, until I figured my life out. But lies don't fade, they multiply. Soon people wanted details. What kind of cancer, what treatment, what hospital. I panicked and said lymphoma. I picked it because it sounded serious but not instantly terminal. I googled symptoms, treatment plans, survival rates. I memorized them. I became fluent in a disease I didn't have. I told people I was going to chemo. I bought scarves and hats to make it look like my hair was thinning. I even started losing weight from the anxiety, which only made it more convincing. My coworkers started a GoFundMe. I told them I didn't want it, but of course they insisted. The first donation came from my boss, then my friends, then people I barely knew. By the end of the week, it was over $10,000. I told myself I'd pay it all back someday. I never did. The guilt came in waves. I'd wake up some mornings and feel sick to my stomach. I'd look in the mirror and see a fraud, a parasite feeding on sympathy. But then I'd open my phone and see a message from someone saying they were praying for me, and I'd cry. Not from remorse, but from relief. Because at least someone cared. I started living in 2 realities. In one, I was a cancer patient. Fragile, brave, inspiring. In the other, I was just me. Pathetic, broke, drowning in guilt. I'd post photos of tea and blankets and caption them with words like, "fighting through the hard days." People would comment hearts, prayers, words like, "you've got this." And every like, every message was another brick in the wall between who I was and who I pretended to be. My parents drove down to visit one weekend. They brought homemade soup, gifts, a blanket my mum had knitted. I wanted to tell them the truth right then. I opened my mouth to say it, but she looked at me and said, "You're so strong. I don't know how you do it," and I froze. Because if I told her the truth, that strength would vanish, and all she'd see was a liar. Months passed. The lie got heavier. I said I was in remission once just to slow things down, but people were so happy, so proud, that I couldn't bear to undo it. I promised myself I'd come clean after a few more weeks, after the GoFundMe ran its course, after things settled. But they never did. Then something happened I didn't expect. Someone else at work actually got sick. Real cancer, real chemo, real suffering. I visited her in the hospital, and when she hugged me and whispered, "I'm glad I have someone who understands," I almost vomited. She was pale, shaking, with tubes in her arms, and she thought I was like her. I wanted to disappear. That night I went home and deleted my social media. I told people I was focusing on recovery. But the guilt didn't fade, it grew roots. A few weeks later I got called into HR. Someone had started asking questions. My insurance records didn't show any treatments, no hospital visits, nothing. I tried to lie again, said I was paying out of pocket, but it fell apart fast. They didn't yell, They just looked at me like I was something unrecognizable, like I wasn't a person anymore. They fired me quietly, told me it was for personal reasons. I knew what that meant. My co-workers stopped talking to me. The GoFundMe organizer demanded answers. I gave vague ones until I couldn't anymore. Eventually I told the truth, or at least part of it. I said the diagnosis was a misunderstanding, that I'd been misinformed by doctors. No one believed me, but no one wanted to deal with me either. They just left. My parents stopped calling as often. When they did, I could hear the disappointment in their voices. They never confronted me directly, but they knew. Mothers always know. It's been over a year since everything fell apart. I'm still paying off debts I created pretending to be sick. I moved cities, changed my number, started over, but I can't escape myself. Every time someone mentions cancer, my stomach turns. Every time I see a fundraising post, I feel like I'm watching a ghost of who I pretended to be. I hate what I did. I hate that I became the kind of person who would exploit pain for attention. But the worst part is understanding why. Because underneath all the guilt, there's a small, broken part of me that still remembers how it felt to be cared for, how intoxicating it was to matter to people, how addicting it was to be loved for something tragic. Sometimes I try to convince myself I'm not a monster, that I was just lonely, lost, desperate, that I didn't mean to hurt anyone, but I did. I hurt everyone. I took their empathy and twisted it into something selfish. I used people's kindness as a mask for my own emptiness. I've tried apologising to some of them. A few forgave me, most didn't. I don't blame them. There are nights I still rehearse what I'd say if I could go back. If I could grab the version of myself sitting in that car, typing that first lie, and tell them what would come next. I'd tell them that attention built on pity isn't love, that sympathy isn't connection, that loneliness doesn't go away when you lie, it multiplies. I've thought about going public, writing a real post, signing my name, admitting everything, but I don't know if it would be for the right reasons. Part of me knows that even that could be another way of seeking forgiveness I haven't earned. So instead, I just live with it, quietly. I work a new job, warehouse work, night shifts mostly. No one there knows my story. Sometimes I'll overhear someone talking about a fundraiser or a friend who's sick and I'll have to walk away. I can't be part of those conversations anymore. I don't deserve to be. I donate what I can now. Not much, but something. I don't sign my name. I just send the money and hope it helps someone real. Someone who's actually fighting, not pretending to. Every so often, I think about reaching out to the people I hurt one by one. But what would I say? I'm sorry doesn't undo anything. It doesn't erase the way I stole compassion from people who needed it more. It doesn't give back the trust I shattered. So instead, I confess here. Because maybe that's all that's left for people like me. Anonymous truth in a digital void. Maybe some part of me hopes that saying it out loud, even to strangers, might mean I can start forgiving myself, but I don't think I'll ever really be forgiven. Not completely. Sometimes, when I lie awake at night, I imagine what it would have been like if I told the truth that first day. If I just said, I'm tired, I'm lonely, I need help. Maybe someone would have cared anyway. Maybe I wouldn't have felt invisible. Now I know that being seen isn't the same as being known, and being pitied isn't the same as being loved. I lied about having cancer. I built a version of myself that was easier to love than the real one. And now I'm left with what's underneath, the raw, unfiltered truth, that sometimes the worst kind of sickness isn't the one in your body, it's the one in your heart when you forget who you are and start pretending just to feel something. That's my confession, and it's the only honest thing I have left. Story 4. My brother thinks our father left him money, but I'm the one who took it. I've never told anyone this before. Not my family, not my friends, not even the therapist I saw for 6 months after everything happened. I told her I was depressed because of financial stress. I never told her why. The truth is, I did something that still keeps me awake most nights, even though it's been almost 8 years. I can't undo it. I can only live with it. When my father died, we weren't on good terms. We hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years, not after the argument. He was a complicated man, strict, proud, the kind of father who loved you fiercely but never softly. Growing up, he expected perfection. Good grades, good manners, no excuses. I rebelled. I always had a chip on my shoulder, always wanted to prove I didn't need him. My brother Adam was different. He was quiet, patient, the golden child. Dad adored him. Even when we were kids, I could see the difference. Adam got the nods of approval, I got the disappointed sighs. It didn't make me hate my father, but it made me resent my brother. When Dad got sick, I told myself I'd visit. I didn't. I said I was too busy with work, but really I couldn't face him. I didn't want the last thing between us to be an apology, so when he passed, I felt nothing. Just guilt disguised as numbness. Adam handled the funeral. I showed up late. Everyone told me he'd left something for us, a will, but no one said what. I didn't care, at least not until I saw the numbers. It turned out my father had been sitting on more money than anyone realised. Not millions, but enough to matter, a few $100,000. He'd left it split between Adam and me, but here's the thing. I was the executor. I was the one who handled the estate, the paperwork, the bank transfers. I told Adam I'd take care of everything, that I'd handle the legal side since I had more experience. He trusted me. I don't know when the temptation started. Maybe it was the day I opened the account and saw all that money sitting there. Maybe it was when I looked at my own life, the mounting debt, the failing business, the landlord threatening eviction. I told myself it was just a loan, just until things got better. I moved half of Adam's share into my account, intending to pay it back in a few months. I even wrote a note in my phone. Transfer back $84,500 by June. That note is still there. The money isn't. At first I felt sick every time I thought about it. I avoided Adam, avoided everyone. I told him probate was taking longer than expected, that the bank was dragging its feet. He believed me. Why wouldn't he? I'd never given him a reason not to. He'd call sometimes, gently asking for updates, and I'd say, "Any day now." I thought I'd have time to fix it. I didn't. My business collapsed that summer. The money I'd borrowed disappeared in months. Bills, failed investments, desperation. I tried to tell myself I'd find a way to get it back, but every time I opened my account the number was smaller. And then one day, there was nothing left. Adam finally called me one night, months later, and said, "Hey, I got a letter from the lawyer. It says everything was settled." My stomach dropped. I'd forged one of the last documents, saying both inheritances were distributed. He thought it was done. He thanked me. I could barely breathe. After that, things changed. Adam bought a used car that barely ran. He told me he was saving up for a house, but it might take years. He never once asked about the inheritance again. I think he assumed the money was tied up in something complicated. Maybe a trust, maybe taxes. He never pushed. I told myself he didn't need it as much as I did. That he had his life together. A wife, a steady job, a family. I told myself he wouldn't even miss it. But every time I saw him post a photo of his kids, or talk about working extra hours, or hear him mention how tight things were, I felt something rot inside me. Years passed. The guilt didn't fade, it grew roots. Every family gathering felt like a performance. I'd smile, shake his hand, play the part of the responsible brother, the one who handled things. Sometimes he'd pat my back and say, "Dad would have been proud of how you stepped up." That sentence cut deeper than anything else, because if Dad could see what I did, he'd hate me. Last year, Mum passed away. Before she did, she called me into her hospital room. She was weak, barely able to speak, but she looked at me and said, "Take care of your brother." I wanted to tell her everything right then. I wanted to confess, to beg for forgiveness, but I didn't. I just nodded. Now it's 8 years later. I live in a small apartment again, smaller than the one I had when this all started. The money's long gone. I've rebuilt some of my life, but not the part that matters. Adam still calls me on birthdays, still invites me to dinner, still trusts me. I can't look him in the eye. I've thought about paying him back quietly, but I don't have the means. I've thought about confessing, but what would that do? It wouldn't fix anything, it would destroy him. It would destroy our family. Sometimes I dream that he finds out, not from me, but by accident. That he discovers some old document, some forgotten file, and realizes what I did. In the dream, he doesn't yell. He just looks at me with this expression I can't stand. Disappointment. The same one Dad used to give me. I always wake up before he says anything. I've spent years trying to justify it. I tell myself it was desperation, not greed. But the truth is, it was both. It was weakness, selfishness, cowardice. I've made peace with the fact that I'll never forgive myself. But what haunts me most isn't the money, it's the trust. He trusted me more than anyone, and I turned that into a weapon. Every year on the anniversary of Dad's death, Adam and I visit the grave together. He always brings flowers. I never do. I tell him I forgot, but the truth is, I can't bring myself to place anything there. It feels wrong, like pretending. I watch him kneel down, talk softly to the stone, and I wonder if Dad already knows. I've thought about leaving Adam a letter, explaining everything, apologising, leaving what little I have to him when I'm gone. But even that feels selfish, like trying to offload my guilt after I'm no longer here to face it. So I keep it inside. I carry it quietly, like a debt that can never be repaid. Every day I walk past a bank on my way to work. The glass doors reflect everything behind me. Cars, faces, the sky. I look at my reflection, and I barely recognise myself. I see a man who once wanted to prove he wasn't like his father, and became worse. That's my secret. My brother thinks our father left him money. He doesn't know that I took it, and he never will. Story 5. I catfished my ex just to see if he'd cheat again, and he did. I know how bad that sounds. I've replayed it in my head 1,000 times trying to justify it, but there's no version of this story where I come out looking good. The truth is, I catfished my ex-boyfriend because I wanted proof. Not closure, not revenge, just confirmation that I wasn't crazy for thinking he was still the same person who broke me the first time. But what I didn't expect was how far it would go, or how much it would mess with my head to hear him fall for me twice, both times under different names. We dated for almost 3 years. His name's Ryan. When we met, he was charming in that dangerous, disarming kind of way. The kind of guy who knows exactly what to say to make you feel like the only person in the room. He worked in marketing, said he loved storytelling, which I guess should have been my first red flag. He could make anything sound believable. I fell for him hard. The first year was perfect. Trips, long phone calls, gifts. Just because. He'd text good morning every day like clockwork. I thought I'd found it. Real love. The kind that makes all the failed relationships before it makes sense. But then the lies started. Little ones at first. Missed calls he couldn't explain. Work dinners that ran too late. A perfume that wasn't mine in his car. I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself that people who go looking for problems eventually find them. Then, one night, he left his laptop open. I wasn't snooping, not at first, but the message preview was right there on the screen. Last night was amazing. My stomach dropped. I clicked it. The conversation that followed was long, detailed, intimate. There were multiple women, different cities, different excuses. Each message was a small death. I confronted him. He cried. He said it didn't mean anything, that he was lost, that he'd fix it. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But once you see the cracks, you can't unsee them. We tried therapy, long talks, everything you're supposed to do when you love someone who's already halfway gone. It didn't work. I left him. A year passed. I tried dating again, but nothing stuck. Everyone felt temporary. Then one night, out of morbid curiosity, I looked him up. His Instagram was still public. Same smile, same captions about growth and healing. He was apparently single, posting gym selfies and quotes about accountability. I rolled my eyes. But then I noticed something. He was liking a lot of girls' posts, the same type of girls he'd always gone for. I told myself it didn't matter, I was over it. Except I wasn't. That's when the idea started forming. I'd seen it happen online. People testing loyalty with fake profiles, catching cheaters in the act. I told myself it was just curiosity, that I wouldn't actually do anything. But one night after a few glasses of wine, I made the profile, a fake name. A few stock photos, a version of me that wasn't me. Brunette instead of blonde, new city listed, interest that matched his exactly. It took 30 minutes. I didn't expect him to find it, but he did. Within a day, he messaged first. "Hey, do I know you from somewhere?" I said, "Maybe." "I'm new here." He asked where I lived, what I did for work, what music I liked. I answered everything carefully, keeping it vague enough to stay safe but specific enough to sound real. Within 3 days, he'd said I had the kind of vibe I don't see often. It was word for word something he'd said to me years ago. I felt sick. I could have stopped right there. I should have. but curiosity turned into compulsion. I wanted to see if he'd crossed the line, so I played along, slow, cautious, always steering the conversation back when it got too personal. I told myself it was research, that it would help me move on if I saw he hadn't changed. It didn't take long. Within 2 weeks he was flirting heavily. By week 3 he was asking for my number. I gave him a fake one through an app. Then came the calls. Hearing his voice again nearly broke me. He used the same tone, the same playful pauses, the same laugh that used to melt me. He talked about his past relationship, meaning me, but he called it toxic. He said I was controlling, jealous, that he'd done everything he could, but she couldn't forgive. I remember sitting there staring at my phone, shaking. I'd never felt rage and heartbreak mix like that. The part that hurt most wasn't the lie. It was realizing he believed it. He'd rewritten the story so cleanly that even I started doubting my own version of events, so I decided to push it. I asked if he was seeing anyone. He said no, just focusing on myself. I asked if he'd ever cheated. He said, once, but I learned from it. He paused, then added, it wasn't what people think. I knew what he meant. He was talking about me. That's when the game changed. I wanted him to feel something. Regret, maybe. Shame, I don't know. So I leaned into it. The charm, the attention, the soft encouragement he thrived on. I gave him exactly what he gave me years ago. Validation wrapped in curiosity. Within a month, he was falling. He'd text, "You're different. You actually listen." I'd stare at the screen for minutes before replying, half disgusted, half fascinated. Then he asked to meet. I froze. It was supposed to end before that point. I told him I was out of town for work. He said he could drive. I panicked and ghosted him for 2 days. When I finally replied, I said I was overwhelmed, that I wasn't ready to meet. He said he understood, but I could feel the distance in his messages after that. The chase was fading. And here's the twist I didn't expect. I missed it. I missed him. Not the real him, but the version of him that was still mine. The one who thought I was someone worth chasing. The catfish became an addiction, a way to rewrite the ending, to control the pain that once controlled me. I started messaging him again, more often. I'd go to sleep thinking about what she would say next. I stopped answering texts from real friends. My whole emotional life was built around a fake conversation with a man I swore I didn't love anymore. Then came the night it all fell apart. He sent a photo, a mirror selfie, shirtless, same smirk I once thought was charming. I didn't even respond. I just stared at it for a long time, realizing that this was who he really was, a man addicted to attention, just like I was addicted to understanding him. I deleted the fake account, blocked him. 2 weeks later, he texted me, the real me. "Weird question," he wrote. "Have you ever heard of someone named Lily?" She kind of disappeared. My heart stopped. I asked why. He said, "I think she ghosted me. I really liked her. She reminded me of you, actually." I stared at that message until my eyes blurred. I wanted to confess. I wanted to scream. That was me, and you fell for me all over again, and you cheated on me again even after I stopped being yours. But what would that do? It wouldn't make him better. It wouldn't make me whole. So I just said, "Sorry, I don't know her." He replied, "Yeah, didn't think so. We haven't spoken since. It's been almost a year now. Sometimes I still think about messaging him, not as Lily, not as me, just as someone asking, 'Do you ever change, or do you just get better at lying?' But I don't. I can't. Because the truth is, I'm not the victim in this story anymore, I'm the mirror. He showed me who he was, and I showed myself what I'm capable of when I can't let go. I wanted proof that he hadn't changed. I got it. But now, when I think back, I realize that somewhere along the way, I became exactly like him. Someone who lies for closure, who manipulates for comfort, who mistakes pain for connection. That's my confession. I catfished my ex to see if he'd cheat again, and he did. But the real betrayal wasn't his, it was mine. Story 6. I pretended to be someone else online and ended up falling in love with the person I was lying to. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who catfished someone. I used to judge people who did that. I thought it was cruel, pathetic, maybe even sociopathic. But now, after everything that's happened, I understand how someone could slide into it without meaning to. How loneliness can twist itself into something unrecognizable until you're doing things you swore you never would. It started during lockdown. I was 27, living alone, working remotely, and talking to no one outside of emails and grocery store clerks. I'd wake up, scroll through social media, see people baking bread and starting podcasts, and I felt nothing but this dull ache in my chest. Everyone seemed to have someone, a partner, a roommate, a pet, and I had silence. One night, out of boredom, I downloaded a dating app. I used my real name, real photos, real everything. I matched with a few people, but the conversations were stilted. Everyone was just tired, half-hearted. I deleted the app after a week. Then, a few nights later, I re-downloaded it. But this time, I made a new profile. Fake name, different city, photos I found on a free image site. I told myself it was just an experiment, that I wanted to see how people would treat someone who wasn't me. I used the name Ava. She was everything I wasn't. Confident, funny, warm. The kind of person who could walk into a room and make friends instantly. I matched with someone named Eli. His profile wasn't flashy, just a few pictures of him hiking, cooking, smiling with friends. His bio said, "Trying to find something real in a world that doesn't feel real anymore." That line got me. It felt like something I would have written. Our first conversation was easy, effortless even. He told me about his job at a local animal shelter, his love for old movies, how he'd been writing poetry in secret since college. I told him Ava was a freelance designer who loved rainy days and chai lattes. We stayed up until 3 a.m. talking about everything. The books that broke us, the people we couldn't forget, the versions of ourselves we didn't show the world. I told myself I'd end it after that night, but I didn't. Every day we talked. Morning texts, voice notes, calls that stretched until dawn. I learned the rhythm of his laugh, the pauses in his sentences when he was thinking, the way he said my Ava's name like it meant something. For the first time in years, I felt seen, except he wasn't seeing me. He started asking to meet in person. I came up with excuses. My schedule's crazy. My mum's sick. COVID cases are rising again. Every lie made me hate myself a little more, but every message from him made it impossible to stop. Then one night, he sent me a photo of his dog asleep on his lap and wrote, "I wish you were here." My chest hurt when I read it. I typed, "Me too." And for a moment, I let myself believe it was real, that I was the person he wanted there, not some girl from a stock photo gallery. Weeks turned into months. The more we talked, the more he opened up about his childhood, his parents' divorce, the loneliness he'd been feeling too. Sometimes I forgot that I was lying. Sometimes, when he said, "I love talking to you, Ava," I answered without flinching. Then one night he said, "I think I'm falling for you." I froze. I stared at the message for nearly an hour. Part of me wanted to delete the account right then, vanish, spare him the inevitable heartbreak. But another part, the selfish, broken part, wanted to feel loved, even if it wasn't really me. So I wrote back, "I think I'm falling for you too." After that, everything changed. We started talking like we were in a relationship. Good morning texts, I miss yous, plans for a future that didn't exist. He sent me playlists, wrote me poems. I saved every one, and I hated myself. I started deleting old messages, afraid someone might find out. I avoided mirrors. I barely slept. My anxiety got so bad that my hands shook every time my phone buzzed. But I couldn't stop. I told myself I was protecting him, that if I came clean, it would destroy him. That lie was easier than admitting I didn't want to lose him. The turning point came 6 months in. He said his shelter was hosting an adoption event and asked me to come. I told him I couldn't make it, that I was out of town. He said, "Please, I need to finally see you, just for 5 minutes." That night I went anyway, not as Ava, as me. I stood across the street from the shelter, heart pounding, watching him laugh and talk with people. He looked exactly like I remembered from his pictures. Kind, easy, real. At one point he checked his phone, frowned and looked around like he was searching for someone. For her. For me. I left before he could see me. I got in my car, drove home and sobbed until sunrise. The next day I deleted everything. The photos, the number, the messages. I sent one final text before I vanished. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore." He called, texted, begged for an explanation. I didn't answer. I watched his messages pile up. Confusion, hurt, anger, heartbreak. Did I do something wrong? Please, just tell me why. The guilt was unbearable. I thought about telling him the truth 100 times. I even drafted a message once. My name isn't Ava. I made it all up. I'm sorry, but I never sent it. Because no apology could fix what I'd done. It's been 2 years now. I still think about him. I still remember the sound of his voice. Sometimes when I hear a song from one of his playlists, my stomach twists. I wonder if he ever found out. If he ever told someone the story about the girl who vanished. The one he thought might be the one. I don't blame him if he hates me. I hate me too. People think catfishing is about control or cruelty. But for me, it was about loneliness. About wanting to feel seen by someone who made the world quieter. I told myself it was harmless. That I was protecting him from rejection. That maybe somehow he was falling for who I really was inside. But that's not how it works. You can't build something real on a lie. Sometimes I imagine meeting him again someday, by chance as myself. Maybe in a coffee shop, or at a bookstore, or crossing the street. I wonder if he'd recognize my voice. I wonder if I'd have the courage to say, it was me. I'm sorry. But that day will never come, because even if he forgave me, I don't think I ever will. That's my confession. I catfished someone to feel less alone, and in the end, I've never felt lonelier in my life. Story 7. I told my family I had a job for 2 years, but I was unemployed the whole time. I don't know when it stopped being a lie and started becoming a second life, but I spent 2 full years pretending to have a job I didn't. Every morning I woke up, got dressed, packed a lunch and left my apartment like everyone else. I'd ride the bus to the end of the line, sit in cafes with my laptop open and pretend to work. Then I'd come home and talk about fake meetings, fake deadlines, fake co-workers. It sounds insane, I know, but when you start lying to protect yourself, it's terrifying how quickly it becomes your reality. It started after I got laid off. It wasn't even my fault, budget cuts, they said. I'd been at the company for 3 years, and they let me go with a polite email and a severance check that barely covered rent for 2 months. I told myself I'd find something new quickly. But days turned into weeks, and every application felt like throwing pebbles into a void. Rejections piled up, or worse, silence. When my mum called to check in, I didn't have the heart to tell her. She'd always been proud of me, her career kid, the one who made it out of our small town and into a real job in the city. So when she asked, "How's work?" I just said, "Busy." I thought it would be a temporary lie, just a buffer until I figured things out. The next week she called again. "Are you still liking it?" "Yeah," I said. "It's good." That was the start. Soon, my family started asking for details. What kind of projects I was doing, how my co-workers were, what my boss was like. I made them up. I built an entire company from scratch inside my head. A marketing firm with an open office and weekly happy hours. I gave fake names to fake co-workers, invented office drama, and even talked about promotions I didn't get. It was like writing fiction, except the main character was me. A version of myself that still had their life together. To make it believable, I started keeping a schedule. I'd wake up early, shower, make coffee, and leave my apartment at 8 a.m. sharp. I couldn't let my neighbours see me home all day. I'd walk to a cafe, order a coffee I couldn't afford and sit there until the lunch crowd came in. Then I'd move to a park bench, or the library, or the lobby of a co-working space that didn't check passes too carefully. I'd open my laptop and stare at blank documents just to look busy. At first it felt ridiculous, then it became routine. Pretending gave me a strange sense of stability. The lie became my structure. I started running out of money after 3 months. I picked up odd jobs, dog walking, grocery deliveries, online surveys. I told my family they were side projects. When the holidays came, my mum asked if I'd be getting a Christmas bonus. I said yes. Then I used my credit card to buy gifts so she wouldn't suspect anything. The guilt was constant. Every phone call was an act of performance. Every family visit was rehearsed. My mum would say, "I'm so proud of you," and I'd smile and feel like a criminal. The worst part was, the longer I kept it going, the harder it became to tell the truth. The lie had gotten too big. How do you suddenly admit that everything people believe about you is fake? There were close calls. Once, my cousin mentioned a friend who worked in marketing and asked which company I was with. I told him we might have collaborated. Then he pulled out his phone to look them up. I panicked, excused myself to the bathroom and sat there shaking until he forgot about it. Another time, my mum surprised me with a visit. She texted me when she was 5 minutes away. I wasn't home. I was sitting in a coffee shop pretending to work. I sprinted back to my apartment, out of breath, and threw my bag on the table to make it look like I'd just come in from the office. She hugged me and said, "You work too hard." I almost cried right then. The truth started eating away at me. I stopped sleeping. I'd wake up in the middle of the night convinced someone had found out. My phone would buzz and I'd think it was my mum calling to say, "I know." I started avoiding her calls, then felt guilty for that too. One day, she told me she wanted to visit my office. She said she was proud and wanted to see where I worked. I made up an excuse, told her security didn't allow visitors because of client confidentiality. She believed me, of course, because that's the thing about people who love you, they want to believe you. The breaking point came 2 years in. I was meeting a friend for lunch, a real friend who didn't know about the lie. He mentioned he'd heard about a job opening at a company that worked with mine. He said, "You should apply, they sound great to work with." I laughed, said, "Yeah, maybe." Then he added, "You could use me as a reference if your boss can't." Something inside me snapped. I realised I didn't even have a fake boss anymore, just fragments of stories I'd told over time. I couldn't remember what lies I'd told to which people. My web of fiction had holes everywhere. That night I called my mum. I don't know why I chose her first. Maybe because she was the one I lied to the most, or maybe because I couldn't keep lying to the person who loved me unconditionally. I told her everything, about losing my job, about the lies, about the fake company, the cafes, the charade. There was silence on the other end for a long time. Then she said softly, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I started crying. Ugly, full-body sobs I didn't even know I had left. I told her I didn't want to disappoint her, that I wanted her to still be proud of me. She said, "I'm not proud of what you did, but I still love you." I moved back home a few months later. It was humiliating at first, but also freeing. I stopped pretending. I got a part-time job at a bookstore and started paying off the credit card debt I'd racked up trying to look successful. I still feel the ripple effects of those 2 years. The shame, paranoia that people can see through me. Sometimes I'll catch myself rehearsing lies in my head before talking to someone, like muscle memory. It scares me how easy it still feels. But now, I stop myself. I tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. That's my confession. I spent 2 years pretending to have a job I didn't, all because I was too scared to admit I'd failed. And I learned the hardest way possible that failure isn't what destroys you. It's the lies you build to hide from it. Story 8. I stole my best friend's dream job offer, and I've been living a lie ever since. It's been 6 years and I still can't look at my best friend the same way. Not because of what she did to me, but because of what I did to her. It's the kind of secret that rots from the inside out, slowly, quietly, until you start forgetting what part of your life is real and what part was built on a lie. We met in college, me and Hannah. We clicked instantly. She was the confident one, the type who could walk into a room and somehow make everyone feel like they'd known her forever. I was the quiet one, the observer. Together we balanced each other out. We studied the same thing, communications, and spent 4 years side by side building portfolios, sharing notes, helping each other apply for internships. She was the closest thing I'd ever had to a sister. By senior year we were both exhausted. The job market was brutal. Everyone was scrambling for anything that paid above minimum wage. But Hannah, she always seemed to land on her feet. She got interviews at every big company she applied to. She had that kind of charisma that made people remember her name after one meeting. I told myself I was proud of her, and I was. Mostly. But underneath it, there was this quiet panic, like the world was already deciding who mattered and who didn't, and I wasn't on the list. Then came the opportunity, a marketing associate position at a prestigious firm in the city. It was the kind of job that could actually lead somewhere, the kind that made all the sleepless nights worth it. We both applied. We even helped each other with our resumes. I remember her saying, "If either of us gets it, we'll celebrate together." She got an interview. I didn't. She was so excited. Nervous, but excited. We sat in the library the night before, going over potential questions, rehearsing her answers. I told her she'd crush it, and she did. She came back glowing. A week later, she got an email. "Congratulations, we'd like to offer you the position." I was happy for her, or at least I wanted to be. But that night, While she was out celebrating with her boyfriend, I sat in our shared apartment, staring at her open laptop on the kitchen counter. The email was still up, and beside it was the firm's online portal, her offer letter waiting for her signature. It wasn't some grand, planned betrayal. It was an impulse, a moment of jealousy mixed with fear. Fear that if I didn't do something, I'd be left behind forever. I told myself it was curiosity, that I just wanted to look. But my hands didn't stop at looking. I downloaded the offer letter. The next day, I used the company's general contact form, something like HR at, to send a message pretending to be her. I wrote, "Thank you for the opportunity, but I've decided to decline the offer." I even mimicked her writing style. I told myself it was a harmless delay, that maybe they'd reconsider and call me instead, that maybe fate just needed a push. It worked. Horribly, unbelievably, it worked. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the same company. They said another candidate had declined and they wanted to interview me. My stomach turned, but I said yes. The interview was a blur. I don't even remember what I said. All I remember is walking out of that building feeling like I'd made a deal with something dark and permanent. They offered me the job 2 days later. I accepted. When I told Hannah, she was surprised, but she smiled. "That's amazing," she said. "I guess it worked out for both of us." I nodded, hating myself even as I felt relief. She never found out about the email, not then, not for a long time. The job itself was fine, stressful but manageable. I was good at it, maybe too good. I worked hard, terrified that someone would find out how I'd gotten there. Every success felt tainted. Every compliment from my boss felt like a lie I didn't deserve. Meanwhile, Hannah struggled. The company she eventually joined went under after a year. She bounced between short-term contracts, never finding something stable. I watched her lose the same spark that had once made me feel small in her shadow. And the worst part? She'd call me for advice. She'd say, "You're so lucky. You've really made it. Lucky." That word haunted me. 2 years later, she asked if I could refer her to my company. Said she wanted to apply for a new opening in a different department. My chest felt like it was closing in. I told her they weren't hiring. She believed me. I blocked the job posting from her social media so she wouldn't see it. That's when I knew I wasn't just guilty, I was cruel. Time passed. We drifted apart naturally in different cities, different lives. She met someone, got engaged. I moved into management. Outwardly, my life looked perfect. Inside, it felt hollow. Every accomplishment echoed with her name. The breaking point came last year. We hadn't spoken in months when she called me out of the blue. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She said she was cleaning out old emails, and she'd found the job offer from that company, the one she'd turned down. She said she'd always wondered why she'd never replied, but when she checked the sent folder, she found the decline email. Her voice was calm but sharp. "Did you do it?" she asked. I didn't lie. For the first time in years, I didn't have the energy to lie. I said yes. She didn't yell, she didn't cry, she just said, "You were supposed to be my friend." Then she hung up. That was the last time we ever spoke. I've tried to reach out since then. Emails, letters, voicemails, all unanswered. I even tried sending money once, anonymously, to help her with a project she was starting. She sent it back. I've thought about quitting my job, confessing to HR, coming clean about everything. But what would that do? It wouldn't fix the past. It wouldn't undo the years of success I built on top of that lie. It would just ruin what's left. So instead, I carry it. I go to work every day, surrounded by people who think I earned my place. And I smile and I nod, and I try not to think about the friend I betrayed for a career I can't even enjoy anymore. That's my confession. I stole my best friend's dream job. And the cruelest part is, I was right. It did change my life, just not in the way I thought it would. Story 9. I found out my dad has a second family, and I haven't told anyone. It's been a little over a year since I found out, and I still wake up every day pretending nothing's wrong. Every morning I sit across from my dad at breakfast, and we talk about weather, sports, whatever's on the news, like my entire view of him isn't shattered beyond repair. Because if I tell anyone what I know, I'll destroy more than just him. I'll destroy my mom. The story starts with something small, a phone bill. My parents are the kind of old-school couple who still share everything. Bank accounts, utilities, even the phone plan. My mum asked me to help sort out some overcharges last summer because I'm good with computers. She handed me the login info and I went through the records. That's when I noticed the number. It wasn't familiar. It showed up constantly. Dozens of texts a day, late night calls, even on holidays. At first, I thought maybe it was a work thing. My dad's an electrician, so he talks to clients sometimes after hours, but this number wasn't saved under a name, and the timestamps were too personal. Midnight calls, 6 a.m, messages. Something in me knew. I copied the number and looked it up online. It was a woman, Melissa, around my dad's age. I clicked through her social media, half out of curiosity, half out of dread. The first thing I saw was a photo of her with 2 kids, both teenagers. The boy looked familiar, like unsettlingly familiar. Same eyes as my dad. At first, I told myself I was seeing things, but the more I scrolled, the worse it got. Family photos, vacation pictures, captions like, "So proud of our boy," and every so often, there'd be a man in the background, just a shoulder, a reflection in glass, a hand resting on her back. Never a full shot, but enough. I recognised his watch. I felt sick. I didn't tell anyone that night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there replaying every memory I had of him, every family dinner, every Christmas, every "I love you, kiddo." I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, that maybe it was an affair that started recently, that maybe he'd lost his mind, but the timestamps on her photos went back years. The kids looked like they'd been growing up right alongside me. 2 families, 2 lives. The next day I drove to her address. It wasn't far. I parked across the street and watched. I don't know what I expected. Maybe to see her alone. Maybe to prove myself wrong. But around 5 p.m, my dad pulled up in his work van. I saw him get out smiling, carrying grocery bags. He kissed her at the door. Then the kids ran up to him yelling, "Dad!" and he hugged them both. That moment broke something in me. I don't know how long I sat there. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. I remember wanting to confront him, to storm up and scream, "What the hell are you doing?" But I didn't. I drove home. He came home hours later, same as always, same routine. He asked if I wanted pizza for dinner. I said sure. Since then I've been living a double life too, one where I know and one where I pretend I don't. I started noticing all the gaps that suddenly made sense. The work trips, the weekends he said he was on call, the missed birthdays he blamed on emergencies. My mum always trusted him, blindly. She's the kindest woman I've ever met. She still packs his lunch every morning. Sometimes she calls him her rock. Every time she says that now, I have to leave the room. I've tried to talk myself into telling her. I've drafted texts, rehearsed conversations, even written a letter I never sent. But every time I imagine her face, her confusion turning into heartbreak, I freeze. She doesn't deserve that pain, and yet, I feel like I'm betraying her by protecting him. A few months ago, my dad got sick. Nothing serious, just a bad flu. My mum fussed over him non-stop. I caught myself thinking, I hope his other family's taking care of him too. The thought made me hate myself. It's not just the lie anymore, it's the weight of keeping it. Every dinner feels staged. Every Father's Day card feels like a joke. I've started avoiding him, which he's noticed. He asks if everything's okay. I say, yeah, just busy. Once, I almost cracked. We were driving somewhere, just the 2 of us. He was humming along to a song on the radio, totally at ease, and something in me snapped. I said, "Dad, do you ever regret anything?" He laughed. Said, "Of course." Everyone does. I wanted to scream, "What about the other family?" But I didn't. I just nodded. Last week I found out his other son, my half-brother I guess, got accepted to college. He posted about it online. My dad liked the post. I sat in my room, staring at the screen, wondering if my dad ever looked at me with that same pride. I think he did once. I don't know if he still does. The worst part is, I understand him more than I want to. My dad's not evil, he's weak. He wanted 2 versions of himself. The good husband, the devoted father, the fun weekend dad, and he couldn't let go of either. And in a twisted way, I think he loves us both. That's what makes it unbearable. Because if he were cruel, I could hate him. But he's not. He's just human. Selfish. Cowardly. Human. Sometimes I wonder what will happen when it all comes out. Secrets like this don't stay buried forever. Maybe one of the kids will piece it together. Maybe Melissa will get tired of being the shadow wife. Maybe he'll slip up. When that day comes, my family will implode. My mum will crumble. My sister will never speak to him again, and I'll have to live knowing I could have stopped it sooner, or made it worse sooner. I don't know which is the lesser sin, keeping the secret or revealing it, so I just wait. Every morning I wake up and play my part. I laugh when I'm supposed to. I nod when my mum talks about how lucky she is. I hug my dad on holidays and feel nothing but dread. I tell myself I'll do the right thing someday, but someday keeps moving farther away. That's my confession. I found out my dad has a second family and I've said nothing, because I don't know if telling the truth will save anyone, or just burn everything down. And that brings us to the end of tonight's stories. Some secrets stay buried for years, hidden behind normal conversations and quiet dinners. And some, like the ones you heard tonight, live just beneath the surface, shaping everything without ever being spoken aloud. If there's one thing these confessions remind us of, it's that truth has a strange way of finding its way out, no matter how carefully it's been kept. And when it does, it changes everything, sometimes breaking what was false, sometimes freeing what was real. So wherever you are right now, maybe winding down for the night, maybe just thinking, I hope you take a breath, let your thoughts settle, and remember that we're all carrying something. Sometimes just listening is enough. Thank you for spending your time here with me. Until next time, this is Echo, and you've been listening to EchoCraft. Sleep well, stay kind, and keep your heart light.